So, hey, welcome to an insightful episode of Digital Marketing Matters. Today, we have the privilege of viewing a deep dive into the dynamic world of digital marketing and the ever evolving landscape of search engine optimization. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest, the brilliant Austine Esezobor. I told you I'd ruin it. I'm going to let
No,
you,
no,
let you
got it.
do
You
it.
got it.
He's a seasoned
You got
expert
it.
in SEO and a trailblazer in understanding Google's latest search generative experience. He's an esteemed thought leader with an impressive track record of helping other small businesses navigate the intricacies of SEO. And he's a founder of a renowned digital marketing agency. His expertise has propelled numerous websites to the top ranks of search engine results. And let's just jump into this, Austine. Let's talk about Google's SGE, what it is, how it's transforming the traditional ways of ranking websites, how it's disrupting SEO as we currently know it, and how far advanced just by bringing this information to people, because how many people actually read all the Google pages, the
Right.
books of information when they introduce something new. So let's just jump into it, shall we?
Sure, let's do it. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me, Brian. Happy to be here, talking about our favorite thing, SEO. My favorite thing,
Your
SEO.
favorite thing. I'm all about marketing. I'm all about just marketing these small businesses and helping them grow. So anytime I have somebody like you who's got some deep info on a specific aspect of it, that's exciting stuff. So let's nerd out a little bit. Let's talk about
Sure.
what this whole Google search generative experience is. What is SGE?
So SGE is a new browsing experience on Google search. Now it's different to the way we currently browse Google, in that it uses generative AI, artificial intelligence, to essentially um, provide some of the research that you would normally do just by carrying out normal research on Google. These days, when you carry out research, you tend to use keywords, whereas SGE is more of a conversational style type of research, and it's designed specifically to help you, the user, attain information quickly. Now that's key. Speed is a factor, right there. It's aiming to allow you to pretty much carry out your search sessions from start to end a lot quicker, significantly quicker. That's what the AI is designed to do. Now, it's not actually released just yet.
Okay.
The publication date, in fact, is still to be confirmed by Google. However, they do have it out in beta mode in certain countries in the US, but I think it's rolling out to other markets this year. But right now, it's just the US, and you have to sign up for it to use it. And it's currently an option, so it's almost like a tick button, not a tick button,
Okay.
enable button, sort of
Sure.
button. And once you have it enabled, you're in the SGE experience. So the organic results that we know it so far, the traditional 10 blue links, are pretty much pushed down. So they're not within view of your desktop or mobile search.
Okay. So if it's moving stuff down, I mean, obviously I have things I wanted to ask, but just going conversationally, if it's moving stuff down, how is this going to impact the way businesses do search optimization? Is it going to have to be rich snippets now, or is it going to be voice, or what's the direction? Where do you see it going?
So think of featured snippets,
Mm-hmm.
position 0, all over the screen. That is currently what it looks like. There isn't any sort of ranking ordering of it. So in theory, you could have multiple websites that are number one. So the traditional way of ranking websites is not going to be there. These are the recommended sites that Google provide. This will be I think, faded out over the months and years to come. Now, for as far as the way it will impact businesses, the goal is to essentially have visibility within the SG experience. Now, for Google to know a website to provide within the SG experience, they have to gain the facts about a brand. They have to know what the brand is, or who the brand is rather, what they do, and which audience they serve. Those three things are key within the SGE experience. Now, the reason why it's important for Google to know these three things, and for marketers, websites, brands to provide this information to Google, is that we're now at a stage where users expect to be able to find information that they are seeking quickly. I mentioned earlier that speed is a factor. From
Sure.
an SEO point of view, we've thought of speed as in making sure websites are quick, which is a factor as far as speed is concerned. The secondary factor of speed is enabling users to carry out their research in a quicker time frame. So from when they start their search session all the way to the very end, that now needs to be narrowed down. SGE is aimed to help users attain or gain the knowledge that they are seeking from the potential brands that they want to engage with. And this is one of the reasons why, if you're just focusing on the recommended, if you like, side of the SERPs, search engine results pages, your visibility would dwindle. Ensuring that you're within the visibility of SGE experience is the key to maintaining your traffic levels and increasing it as you go along. So the aim is to be within SGE, definitely, by
Sure.
providing Google those three things I mentioned: who you are, what you do, and which audience you serve.
So businesses are going to have to really focus um, their intent a little bit more than what they've done. As far as people have always done the whole "well, I serve everybody" kind of thing, and we've been talking about you know niching down and serving a specific audience, and you can serve multiple specific audiences, but be more definitive. Is that going to be the direction that SGE is going to kind of force small businesses or businesses in general to go?
Oh, I believe so. So we're now at a stage where the small businesses, they're not necessarily going to quote unquote lose when SGE is rolled out. I say that because they are more agile than the big businesses, so they
Sure.
can maneuver a lot quicker and ensure that they are within visibility of their target audience. But let me break down those three things I mentioned.
Okay.
Ensuring that you know what your brand is. We're moving from a stage of strings, i.e., keywords, to entities. A brand is a type of entity. A person is also an entity. An entity, think of it as a name, place, or thing, right? Those are
Okay.
the three types of entities. Ensuring that you know what your brand is and providing this information to Google in a succinct manner, i.e., in a sentence or two at the most, is key for the algorithms. Now, imagine if I were to ask you what is Apple? You'll have to take a moment to think about what is Apple, the technology company. Are they a technology company or engineering company? This is information that is vital for the search engines. Now, if I were to ask you, what do they do? That is also information that needs to be provided to search engines.
Okay.
Now, if I were to ask you what audience do they serve, that is the third key element that needs to be provided to search engines. The reason these are three key things is, think of Google as a child. They When you have a website, you provide this information, but not necessarily in a succinct manner. The algorithms is looking for to capture this information as quickly and as succinctly as possible. And if you're able to provide this within a sentence, those three things within a sentence each, this will be key information that Google can access quickly and they'll be able to service your website, your brand, to their audience. Their audience are users. Their users are the users that we brands want to acquire. Let's not forget, as marketers, when we're acquiring users via Google,
Hmm.
we're going after Google's audience.
Sure.
They're Google's audience first, right? Now, in order for Google to serve your website to their audience, they need to know that you're a match for their audience. If you're not going to be featured highly within SGE. It's a very similar way to the traditional 10 blue links as we know it now.
Yeah, yeah.
Only those are, as I mentioned earlier, fading away.
Interesting. So you know what got me? You said something that got me thinking. Is it's almost going to become like a dating app. You think about it. You know, you're gonna have to be specific with the description of who you are and what you do and who you
Mhm.
serve. Um, so that's I was like, okay, so people now are going to start swiping left and right on whether or not your info is good.
Well, these three information that that we need to provide to Google, we already do so via social media platforms.
Sure.
Any brand that's on our platform, social media platform, provides this information to the platform. Google historically has operated with a model that's now outdated.
Yeah.
They sought to retrieve information, i.e., they seek information from websites by their crawling algorithms, mechanisms.
Hmm.
Social media platforms receive information from users voluntarily. So social media platforms, let's say specifically TikTok,
Okay.
has an upper hand on Google as far
Sure.
as receiving information from entities.
Sure.
And we're now at a stage where social media and search are battling to essentially own the audience. They share the same audience, right? The same user base. And TikTok, for example, is now going after the search space. They actively promote people to search on the
Right.
platform.
Right.
So if you look at it from a macro point of view, Google is considering all of this and saying this could be a threat to our business. Our market share could be
Yeah.
eaten away by these social media platforms. And it's not just TikTok that's aiming to go after the search space. You have
Yeah.
others as well.
Yeah.
So they have to do something, right? Adds to that the revolution of AI, ChatGPT specifically.
Sure.
Um, they are very much aiming to service users with what users already expect from a generative assistive engine. So gone are the days where someone searches for a very keyword focused intent or keywords focused query. It's a
Hmm.
lot more conversational now, and they are almost users are almost trained to expect a more conversational style response from the device, the platform that they are using. If Google is not able to adapt quickly and provide this to searchers, they're going to lose market share.
For sure.
Probably even more than they anticipate that they will lose. And I do believe they'll lose market share.
For
Chances
sure.
are they'll remain either number one or two, but this is something that they have to roll out quickly.
Yeah.
They're getting this. This is going to be. I see it as the biggest revolution in search that we've ever had, and that's not hyperbolic.
No, not at all. No, remind me. I'm trying to remember. Is Bard Bing or is Bard Google?
Bard is Google.
Okay.
So yeah, so Bard is Google's version of ChatGPT.
Right. Which is so far a complete failure.
Um,
It's a failure.
name wise, it's
Oh
definitely
yeah,
not going to
they'll change that.
it's not sticky. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
they'll
sticky
change
enough.
that. Yeah, and they're going to have to keep some form of AI search on their platform. You know, I mean, as a
Oh yeah.
developer, you know, we always see things in the back end that a lot of people don't even know. It's like their whole playground area. And people don't know that things come into Google and then disappear. And, you know, this one's going to have to stay. So how are businesses then? I mean, talking about the three things they're going to have to address. Um, how are they going to have to adapt their strategies now? You know, are they is SEO going to become a thing of the past to where now they have to optimize towards SGE, or are they going to be working simultaneously, kind of, or how's that going to work or in parallel? I mean,
So think of it as an expansion of SEO and search from a macro point of view.
okay,
The days where we consider keywords, those are very quickly going to dwindle. I don't think SEOs will be considering keywords in the next 18 months, I reckon. Entities is now the focus. Entities, from an SEO point of view, is essentially having your a page, the page that best services the words that you once targeted. So if someone is searching for iPhone on Google, Apple will be saying, okay, this iPhone entity, this specific page is the best page for it, and that page will be the entity that is shown to Google.
okay,
So there's got to be a mind shift from thinking of keywords to thinking of assets and pages as your assets, right? Those are the things that you want to focus on. Now, for each asset slash page slash entity, it'll be a case of focusing on those three things:
sure,
what it is, what they do, and which audience they are servicing. And think of, let's stick with Apple, right? Apple, the brand, is an asset. The different products that they have are assets, and they'll need to treat each of those assets as specific pages and build on those pages. We'll also, as an SEO community, we'll also need to ensure that brands are very much aware of the entities that we're focusing on. So these entities are that we want within SGE are our equity pages. There shouldn't be any fluff from an SEO point of view
right,
on websites anymore. Everything that we create has to be succinct to the users that we're aiming to target. If it doesn't have a value, it really shouldn't be as a standalone page. Maybe it can be incorporated into a different page or an existing page, but the days of creating mass amount of pages, as far as content goes, is out of the window, because
really,
all of that is just fluff, and that doesn't service users to complete their research as quickly as possible.
right,
Let me give you an example using TikTok again, right?
okay,
When someone searches for something on TikTok, they find exactly what they're looking for, and it's within the format of videos, right? Usually 15 or so seconds. So
mm-hmm,
it's straight to the point. On Google currently, when they search for something, they have to go through the different pages, right? Click on the page, click on the result rather, enter the page, and usually they'll have a lot of fluff around what they're seeking. So they have to scroll through the page to
right.
find exactly the answer that they are seeking. All of that, this is what SGE is aiming to do. Completely remove all of that fluff and just present the answers that a user is seeking, the
So,
way they expect on social media platforms.
so as we've been telling people for the last X number of years, and in the word count has changed from, you know, 800 to 1,000 to 1,500 to 3,000 to 5,000, whatever. Um, what you're saying then is we're going to be not focused so much on a 3,000 word blog post as much as, hey, here's the answer to your question. And those assets will be pages mostly of the question type rather than a statement type. Is that what I'm hearing?
Um, Potentially, it's more of a case of a page will have everything that's needed for that specific asset type, right, as
Okay.
pertaining to it. And it'll be down to Google, their assistive engine, to use or gather the information that's essential for the user based
On
on
that
what the user,
page.
yes, based on what the
Okay.
user searches for.
So,
They already have this in terms of passage indexing.
right. So then the content is just going to have to be structured better for Google to be able to find the specific answer to a question.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
how do you see it being structured? I mean, again, staying with the three parameters, but how do you see it needing to change to be structured in a way that it'll be pleasing to SGE for SGE to serve the query?
So one of the ways would be thinking of more conversational terms rather than keywords specifically. So with someone searching for best thing to do in New York City in August, right? This is more of a human-based query rather than New York City, I don't know, things to do, right?
Sure.
So writing it that way would be beneficial for SGE,
Okay.
and any, in fact, it will be beneficial for um any tool or platform that utilizes AI, because AI will be looking for content that caters more for the human experience. Mind you, this is also why Google added the additional in
Right.
the now EEAT, right?
And
Experience.
just for the sake of listeners and viewers, what is EEAT?
So it's rating guidelines, stands for it used to be EAT, expertise, authority, and trust. And Google recently added an additional E at the start, which is experience. So you now have experience, expertise, authority, and trust. The experience is looking to think of it as Google seeking information from real users for real users. I, I say that way because Bard is able to correlate content, right?
Mm-hmm.
In theory, Google doesn't need website in the traditional sense because of Bard for a lot of queries or verticals, right? Because Bard is able to correlate content, and they
Mm-hmm.
have data going back 25 years or so.
Roughly.
Yeah. um b- but the experience is a human element, right?
Right.
This is why it's very much a part of Google's considerations now. If you have a video that shows a user experience in New York City, that is more valuable as opposed to someone writing about an experience in New York City, because it shows the human element of it.
Sure.
And it's something that will distinguish, brands will have something like that, will distinguish it from brands who are, I believe, going to compete with AI.
Okay. How are they going to compete with AI?
So Bard, for example, are able to curate content. So if you're a website writing about your an experience in visiting New York, that's something
Mhm.
that Bard can do, right?
Okay.
But what's going to differentiate you is when you have that human elements to it, saying, this is my experience, me, Austin's experience when I visited New York. Who is Austin? Oh, Austin is this person, right? So this is what I mean by entities. Have you ever visited IMDb? Just browsing through the site?
Oh, yeah, a couple of times, not a lot, but yeah,
Okay, so the entire thing, or Wikipedia is also an example, but I
sure.
think IMDb is a better
That's a better example.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is connected, right? and the entire website is built to focus on entities, movies, actors,
Yep.
actresses, all entities, right? And it's all connected. This is the sort of thing that we marketers will need to build for brands. So the long and short of it is aim to have your website as efficient as IMDb, not Wikipedia. Wikipedia was fine up until maybe a few years ago, but Google's since moved past Wikipedia as a source. IMDb is the ideal site to focus on, the model
Gotcha.
site, I would
Is
say.
that, and that's because of the interlinking between all of the various assets.
The interlinking, the schema markup. Schema from a technical point of view will be schema is the language of Google, so it's
Right.
going to be vital for SGE, as well as the interlinking of the different entities,
Mhm.
and focusing on looking at the relationship between the entities rather than targeting keywords.
Got it. That makes sense. So what we're saying is people are going to have to make a better experience. Businesses are going to have to make a better experience for users in order to be found and be relevant within their market.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is
And
that,
which it goes back to what I mentioned earlier with the three things. What the entity is,
yep.
whether it's a brand or person or a place or thing, what it does, and which audience it serves. Those three things are key.
And schema, if you're doing your schema correctly, can actually answer all of those questions so Google can figure out what the heck that, if that information is relevant to a search query in whatever method they're using.
Yeah, schema is what ties it all together and presents it in a, think of it as the package for Google. That is the
Sure.
language that Google prefers, JSON LD specifically.
Sure.
So yes, once you know all those things, the tactics will then be using having them on pages as well as using things like schema for the presentation.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. So figure out your schema, get better at that. So, how will this impact, or, well, let's do this better. Will this be a positive or a negative, do you see, as far as small businesses? Because I'm not worried about big businesses, they've got their own deals. But as far as small businesses are concerned, is this going to be a positive or a negative impact, do you think?
I think negative, net positive for small businesses. Here's why. I mentioned earlier that in theory, we could have multiple websites that are position one. Um, this is essentially a, if you like, it's an opportunity for small businesses to be seen to their audience that they're targeting, without having to focus on the traditional 10 blue links approach and aim to go up and up the rankings. Nowadays, or when SGE is released, if you know those three things and you present it efficiently to Google, you're very likely to outperform the bigger brands, especially if you're local to the audience that you're targeting and big brands are not. This is why I think local SEO will be very important for businesses, for local businesses. I think they're going to come out on top, and they, of course, they'll be able to make changes to the websites, to their websites, a lot quicker than the bigger brands will be.
Certainly.
So Google will be able to focus or acknowledge them quicker, I believe. But the
Gotcha.
key is
Yeah.
you have to make those changes.
Sure. So, back, I don't know how long you've been doing this. I've been doing this for a long time. My first
Almost
website that I
15
built,
years.
yeah, see, my first website I built was in 1997.
Wow.
So yeah, I talk to people. I was talking to a guy the other day. He goes, I wasn't alive in 1997. Like, yeah, if you saw the website I built, it's somebody actually paid me for it. We're still friends, but I've come across that website in the last few years, and I'm like, wow, you really got ripped off. But but that was the technology of the time,
Right. Yeah.
and it was kind of pre-search engine, as we know it now.
Hmm.
Um, we had Excite and what was it, Dogpile or something like that. There were probably about 50 different search engines at the
But
time.
yeah.
So the way we were building things was for something specific and never really knowing. But if kind of like the social media is now, if you were an early adopter, that was usually a good thing because it positioned you ahead of everybody else.
Hmm.
With SGE, we're moving. So a lot of people think, well, I missed the boat. There's no way I can ever be on top because I missed it. But with SGE now, they can position themselves to be on top.
Yeah.
Is timing going to be a big factor, or is it just going to be the human element and being able to answer people's questions in a human way, even in 5 years from now, without having to be, you know, hyper competitive? Because we put out content. I put out content. My companies put out content, and the whole thing is to how do I outrank these people, which is doable. But will SGE be the same kind of concept?
I believe it's going to change. So the concept of rankings as we know it today, that will slowly fade away with the 10 blue links.
Sure.
In terms of timing, I think there is more than enough time for brands to prepare. SGE isn't released just yet.
Right.
I and there isn't a confirmed release date from
That's what I was
Google.
going to ask you, is when you see it coming out, but it hasn't been confirmed yet.
Yeah, so it's not been confirmed yet. It's still being tested, essentially in the US. Time-wise, my suspicion will be as early or as soon as November, December this year. Usually, when Google releases stuff, it's going to be around that period,
Right.
Q4 of this year. Because it's not even being tested in other markets just yet, I think we have some time to
Okay.
prepare. So as early as November, December, but realistically, it's going to be around. I think we have the best part of a year, I would say, to make preparations. Now, those three things I mentioned, they're not just pertinent to Google. They're pertinent. I'm using Google. Excuse me. Had a frog in my throat.
No
I'm
worries.
using I'm using Google as an example because they are still the leading search
Sure.
engine in most markets.
Sure.
But this would be important for all search engines, regardless of who is the new leading search engine. Um, we're entering the world or the universe of verses, metaverse, Google verse, or alphabet verse. These are big brands that are battling to capture pretty much the same audience base, right?
Right.
So regardless of who wins, those three things are going to be important: who you are, what you do, and which audience you serve. It's what's used across social media now. It's what's used for as part of AI, whether Chat GPT, Bard, or
Hmm.
other platforms.
Yep.
And it's
Claude,
what's going to be
whatever.
used to, yeah, it's what's going to be used for SGE, even Google Perspectives, which is similar to SGE but more perspective focuses more on the user experience aspect of
Okay.
EEAT. That's a whole nother subject that we can
Different conversation.
that we can get into. But time wise, I think we have time. I'd say the best part of a year will be my guess. I don't expect anything earlier than December, and even then, I don't expect it to be across all markets. Maybe in the US, it'll be December of this year.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll say we have the best part of a year to
But
prepare.
even if we have the rest of the year to work on this, it's probably a smart idea to get ahead of the game and start building out whatever you're doing
Yes.
with those concepts in mind,
Hmm.
rather than rather than with standard SEO.
Yes, completely agree. Um, Focusing on those three things and also the entities aspect rather than keywords would be a first step. I would suggest. What I'm suggesting to clients and stakeholders is to slowly move away from keywords. Keyword rankings, you can still present that, but that really should be a secondary view. The focus should be pages, because pages from an SEO point of view are the entities that that will be presenting on Google. So yes, focus on pages. Aim to have your page as succinctly catered to your audience. For every page you have, assuming it's an entity that you want on Google, know what the entity is, what it does, and which audience it serves, and you
Perfect.
that will put you in a brilliant step for when SGE is released.
So when people are developing their content, should they be focused more on just answering questions rather than making statements? If they go into like an answer the public or something like that, would that be a relevant way to put these kinds of content together?
Yes, that's one tactic. It'll be a case of having um the questions that your target audience wants. So
Sure.
not thinking of the questions that you think the brand thinks that it's ideal for the audience, but almost getting into the headspace, the personas of the
Hmm.
audience that you want to target, and providing them with the answers that they are seeking. And yes, answer the public, also ask. They'll be great tools
Yeah.
to use to carry out that research.
Yeah. There was another one I came across the other day. What was it? Ask Socrates, I think, or
Ask Socrates. I'm not sure of
something
that.
like that. Yeah, it's almost like Answer the Public was.
Right.
Now that Neil Patel owns Answer the Public, you have to pay to use Answer the Public.
Yeah.
This, I think it's called Ask Socrates. I'll have to look it up. Um, is like Answer the Public used to be. It's free and
Mm.
gives you a list of questions and things like that. So if you can understand who your audience is and what how you're serving them, um, being able to get into those questions, you can answer things specific to that audience, which
Yes.
will
Absolutely.
help you move up in the positioning. I'm not even going to say the ranking because it's going to be something that's going to be dynamic.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not going to be, you might be number one right now, almost like PPC, on bidding for keywords and ads. If you bid high enough, you move up, and that kind of rotates. And it's kind of a, not the best example, but just because you're in the first position on this search doesn't mean you're going to be in first position on the next search. So
Yeah.
this will be kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I think SEOs will be focusing more on visibility rather than rankings in the months and years to come.
Okay, so from a search engine perspective, what's the best way to structure those kinds of uh, outputs? I'm trying not to go into a search engine optimization um, uh, consultant kind of a question. It's like I'm trying to keep this relevant because there are questions in my mind. I'm going, that would pertain to other aspects. But staying with the small businesses, how are they going to? We may have already answered it, but how are they going to have to? Um, we're not even going to bother with that. It's already it's a redundant question. I'm just asking the same question in a different way. So they
for
have
for
to.
for 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 small businesses, the local will be important. Local SEO, the 5 or 3 to 5 pack, local pack will be what's shown within SGE.
Okay.
So if you're a small business and you haven't necessarily focused on local SEO, that will be key. forget enterprise SEO tactics. Local SEO will be your best bet, and actually be a way to attain visibility to the audience that you're aiming to service.
Perfect. So if we're doing local, say you're a company that has five different locations, and we can do two different ways. So we've got five different locations in the same city. So I'm in San Antonio, Texas. It's massive, and it takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes to drive across town. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to serve two different groups, but they're the same avatar. They're just in a different location. Do I need to make new pages for each of those locations, or is there a way to kind of not trick, but use the same content and have it serve that specific area?
It, this would be one of those, it depends.
Okay.
Because if you one option will be to have different pages,
Hmm.
but if the content is pretty much the same, you can have one page that caters to the different locations, and just pretty much appropriate the content on the page to reflect that it's for the different locations, and focusing on it that way will be an option. So it really depends on how different the content can be. Right now, a lot of local SEOs tend to stick with individual pages, different
Hmm.
pages, I should say. So that will be an approach that, yeah, you can use. You can stick with that approach,
Okay.
but it really depends on the situation.
And that's why I was asking, because, as we know, search right now and Google right now, you get that duplicate content penalty, and you don't want to have the exact same wording for something that's 3 blocks away,
Right.
But I've got some tools that I can use where I can go, okay, here are my 20 different postal codes. When somebody in this code types in something near me, I can now have some script in my page that says, hey, you in Brighton, you know, I'm serving you, and I can relate to you with British cities, instead of Brighton, it's the same exact content for Liverpool,
Right.
but we're plugging in script saying serve this content, change the word if we're in these different cities. So that may be going away, or will that be still a way to handle that?
That will be, I think that will remain. It's,
Okay.
I don't see that going away just yet, but it's, um, the best option will depend on a brand specific situation. So if a brand has a location, let me use London and Brighton, you can have two different pages for that. However, if the content, if there isn't much of a differentiation between the two different locations, having one page that identifies the two different locations is a secondary option. So it really depends. It depends on several factors.
Which we'll probably find out what those are as time goes on. I mean, still the concept is there, but obviously we're projecting best case guesses.
Yes, so far, because there isn't much from Google just yet. I anticipate they'll have a lot more rolled out once SGE is released to the public.
Probably, yeah. Are there, I mean, we've talked about local, we've talked about enterprise corporations a little bit. Is there any specific type of industry that this will serve better, or is it just something everybody should do coming up?
I think a lot of e-commerce businesses will benefit from SGE, especially those that have focused on their PLPs over the last several years, their product listing pages.
Hmm.
I say that because those are great assets for Google and SGE, and they're very rich in terms of information and imagery for when someone is carrying out Google shopping, or shopping on Google, I should say. Verticals or businesses that may suffer from SGE are, think of news sites. Think of, let's say, the Sun or the Times, newspapers. A lot of informational based sites may
Hmm.
suffer from this, from SGE. They may be the losers because the information, people get the information and there isn't much else to do. And if you're Google, why not just provide that information on Google itself, as opposed to having users click on websites to attain the information that they're seeking? This is one of the, I believe, one of the issues that Google's going to have, especially when they roll out to the European Union. Um, they've historically had a lot of issues with news organizations.
Okay.
I think this would be an even bigger problem. For some queries, when someone searches using SGE, there isn't a click or a button for someone to click onto a website. So there isn't a source just yet in the beta mode of SGE. Is this something that Google is going to resolve? I believe so. But is it going to be something that they'll promote for users and almost prompt users to want to click and enter websites? I'm not sure. Because if a user is able to attain that information on Google itself, that
Mm,
is beneficial for them. And
sure.
this is what the user seeks, because
Sure.
they already seek this from social media platforms.
Yep.
And Google is aiming to serve users to keep their market share. So this would be a very interesting um battle. And I believe it will be a battle when Google tries to roll this out across the EU.
That'll be interesting because you're right.
Mm,
There's a lot of news sources, good, better, and different.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you
But
mentioned,
e-commerce, I think they'll be fine.
yeah, because of the way that, I mean, they're already serving their content that way.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned clicking on things to go over to a website. How is this going to impact calls to action on, for just like somebody signing up for a course or something like that? Or will
Mhm.
courses even be a thing because people will be able to go and search out their specific information?
So my thinking around this is where branding becomes vitally important, because the information, essentially, think of information as a something that users can now access on Google.
Hmm.
It's pretty much free. Someone aiming to pay for information will be down to them wanting the information from that specific brand because they are aware of the brand. And this is why I think branding from an SEO point of view will be at an all-time high.
Okay.
I do believe users will be, I think call to action will still be an important element. I do believe users will click on call to CTAs,
Hmm.
and they'll be presented on Google the way they are now. So I don't think that will change. What I do think will change will be top of the funnel type of queries. So if a user is not ready to take action, those type of queries, informational based queries, I think will be serviced by Google. Whereas the bottom of the funnel type of keywords, queries, will be what brands benefit from. But in order to access that, a brand will essentially need to ensure that they are visible to the audience that they're seeking at all times. Again, coming back to what I mentioned earlier, who you are, what you do, which audience you serve. If you have that, then when users are searching top funnel keywords, you probably won't get the clicks, but bottom funnel keywords, brand related searches, as we know them now,
Right.
I think those will increase
Okay.
dramatically.
Okay. So it's a matter of, it's going to become a matter of really positioning yourself with being able to answer those queries correctly,
Yeah,
you know,
because
but if you
again,
do, then you own it.
yes, exactly. Yeah, because again, the whole point of SGE is to carry out the research phase quicker. And I mentioned the goal is to shrink all of that down from the
Hmm.
very start of the session to the end. I think most of what will be shrunk down will be the equivalent of top funnel keywords or queries. So someone searching for a someone starting their search journey, their goal will be to get to the point where they're looking to make a decision quickly. And at that point, those will be the keywords that I think will increase. And those are, of course, brand related queries.
Yeah. Crazy. You
It's
know,
exciting times.
it is. I mean, you know, things are constantly evolving, constantly changing. I started using myself ChatGPT back at the beginning of December, you know, which makes me almost like old. I just I just saw something the other day that only, what is it? Only like 12% of the world even knows that ChatGPT exists, which just is mind blowing. But
Yeah.
you know, it's still mind blowing that not every company has a website and not everybody has access to the internet.
Right.
So that kind of, like I said, I've been building websites since '97. How do you have a business and not have a website?
Right.
But it's constantly evolving. I was watching a video on YouTube a while back, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the person who put the one video had great info on how to use ChatGPT and do some prompting and do some research. And about 12 hours later, he put out another video, and the very first statement in that video was, "Forget the previous video. I'm probably going to pull it down. It's already outdated." That was in 12 hours.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, being ahead of the curve is a great idea, but the curve's going to change anyway. So, you
See,
know,
what you just mentioned right there comes back to one word that sticks to mind: speed. Speed is a factor. The
adaptability.
research, yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect. Because we're at a point now where searchers, users are a lot smarter than they were 10, 15 years, even 5 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we're going to enter a reality where users are very adept at knowing how to search. Prompts will be key for what users are searching for.
Sure.
So all of this is leading to the searchers, if you like, intellect increasing. So Google has to match that and cater to that.
And so do business owners, because business owners
Yes.
have
Yeah.
always have always looked at their clients and customers as not being very knowledgeable, and now I need to teach you about this thing before I can bother selling. And most people now, or well, most people using the internet, um, know what the heck's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, the internet the internet's been around for a while now. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't seem like it, but how long has Facebook been around?
Um.
2004.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not even 20 years. Google's been around since like 2001.
Yeah, 98 or so. Yeah.
The beginning, yeah, the initial idea of Google was about 98. Yeah. So it's not young anymore. People have grown up with this. I mean, like I said, talking to a guy, told him how old or what year I started building websites. He's like, I wasn't born yet. All these people now are coming around. They know how to use websites. They know how to search. They know the stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah. So hey, let's wrap this up and see what, get things rolling for everybody. What are the probably the main concepts? I mean, we've touched on it quite a bit. but I want to reiterate that. And then how companies can start implementing this stuff now. And I mean, again, we've talked about it, but just to kind of tie a bow around it.
Sure. So to summarize Google's point of view, they're moving from a traditional search engines with the 10 blue links as recommendations by Google to being more of a search assistive engine. And this will incorporate AI into their search functionality. From a user point of view, they expect to be able to access information quickly, and they expect their research to be carried out fast from the very beginning to the end. That will be in record time, and that will be supported by generative AI. From a marketing point of view, as a brand, as a business, you'll need to ensure that you know what your brand is, what it does, and which audience you service. That is key for your brand as the entity and for all other entities that you have. Think of entities are essentially a name, place, thing, and a brand is the most important entity. That's what I focused on branding as the example. It's once you have your brand nailed, everything else can be accomplished rather easily. But know what it is, what it does, and which audience you service, and have that listed, have that known explicitly on your website,
Perfect.
ideally in a sentence or two.
Perfect. Perfect. So don't stress over blowing up or bloating your content. Just be more specific and
Yep.
and direct.
Get straight, yeah, get straight to the point.
Nobody has time anymore. Well, Austin, I really appreciate your time today. Hey, how can people get in touch with you if they've got specific questions or want to do work with you? What's the best ways for people to get in touch with you?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Brian. You can check me out on LinkedIn, Austine Esezobor. I'm on LinkedIn. You can also just Google me, and I have a YouTube channel called Democratizing SEO. Check it out. It's a podcast slash YouTube channel. So check me out on those three things: LinkedIn, Googling me, and YouTube, Democratizing SEO.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I'll pop into the YouTube and check out more stuff.
Awesome.
So, awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate your time. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We're going to hit this button right here and call it a day.
Thank you so much, Brian.
You bet. Thank you.